Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope you are doing well, finding rest or energy or warmth or sunlight, wherever you are, whatever it is that you're needing. I hope you're finding it. I want to talk about the good old bar chart today. And a question that we often get, well, actually, it's not really often framed as a question. It's more framed as a I'm going to pull my hair out every time I ask my students to make the graph. If I do not explicitly tell them what graph to make, they go back to a bar chart. Why? Why can they only make bar charts? Like, what's going on? Well, a couple of thoughts on that. First off, Exhibit A. This is from my son when he was in first grade. Okay, so first grade, he is in his class. They were asking, what was your favorite pet? And then each of the people in his group answered with the options were dog, cat, bird, or fish. This is fantastic. Major shout out to the first grade teacher. Like, yes, love it. Posing a question. It's not written as a question, but what are our favorite pets? Asking the whole group, collecting those data, fantastic use of getting kids working with data in our early elementary years. Thank you to all of our early elementary educators who are holding this down for us. And this is really helpful because our early elementary kids think in categories. And this is fantastic because bar charts are for categories. Dog, cat, bird, fish. We can go along and then we can count. This is kind of a frequency, like how many people responded dog, how many people responded cat, bird, and it looks like in my son's group, nobody responded with fish. That fish was their favorite pet. So why am I sharing my child's work from when they were in first grade? I'm looking at this. First grade? Yeah, I think this was first grade. Maybe it was last year. I don't know. Second grade. He is no longer in that grade. He is with a new teacher who is also wonderful. Because they have been making them for a very, very long time. When our students are working with data, it is one of the very first, if not the very first graph type that they work with when they start working with data and visualizing their data. So in some ways, it is an opportunity to celebrate that they have created the mental model. I'm looking behind me because I've got my neuron hanging on my bookshelf behind me, right? Like they've created that mental model, that connection, data, bar chart. And that is huge. That is something to celebrate. That comes from time, it comes from repetition, it comes from iterations, it comes from multiple exposure, that they have really honed that mental connection, data, bar chart, which, as I say, is one of the wonderful reasons to celebrate. But we are not always looking at things with categories. And that is where some of the rub comes. So one of the reasons why they love bar charts is they have been doing it for a really long time. But what I also want to share out is we as humans really like thinking in categories. So I said our littles like thinking in categories, like reaching over. Our littles really like thinking in categories, but we can just generalize that to all of us. Humans like thinking in categories. And therefore, a bar chart, again, is a really good option for looking at different categories. So here we've got a bar chart showing up in a sample high school environmental science. Can you see? I'm so bad at this. Y'all are so patient with me. So here it's a high school environmental science AP course textbook where we got bar charts showing up. Because in that example, they're comparing wind energy as renewable energy sources in terms of the total capacity by country, by category, right? By country. There are a whole host of books. You can't even see all of them because you can see most of my pictures, evidently, that I have that are written by phenomenally intelligent, smart human beings who spend their entire jobs thinking about how we visualize data and how we communicate that out to the world. And do you know what 99% of the books on my bookshelf about data visualization start with in terms of what visualization type? You guessed it, bar charts. Because we as humans work really well thinking about categories. As we are making sense of the world and going down, it is easy for us to put things in buckets, to group them into different categories, into different things. And our bar chart is really good for that. Another reason why that bar chart is so strong and we hold on to it so deeply, this comes to the making meaning of it, because again, we as humans, regardless of how much training we've had in looking at different data visualizations, we are really good at noticing different in positionality, especially when they're all anchored to one height. We're really good at seeing the difference in heights. Going forward here, there's a better example, okay? And that's what we use when we're making sense of a bar chart. So there are a whole host of reasons why the bar chart, things that we call the bar chart, get used a lot, why our students are pulling from them a lot, and all of those different pieces. Now you might be thinking, okay, Kristen, I get it. There are a whole set of reasons why it's good to use the bar chart, and we get why our students are pulling from it, but they still should not be making a bar chart in this time series, or they should not be making a bar chart in this lab investigation, or they should not be making a bar chart when we are trying to fit the function of the data. Yep. All of those things. But what I am saying is we just have to think about the context of why that bar chart is so sticky, why our students gravitate towards it, like it, pull it from their brains when we are giving them data and asking them to visualize those data. It's a whole host of these and other reasons. Now, do we give up and walk away? Gosh, no, absolutely not. But I just want to call out that that is the reality of where we're at when we're asking our students to visualize data. So it's not really a fair expectation for us to just presume that they would go in and know, in this instance, actually, we want a scatter plot rather than a bar chart. That's a skill they need to learn, and they need to practice, and they need to see, and they need to talk through, and they need to practice, and they need to iterate, and they need to be exposed to others' choices, and they need to practice the exact same way they have been able to do with bar charts since kindergarten. So as our students get older, and as we are adding more graph types in to what they are working with, we need to make sure we're giving space for that opportunity for time, repetition, practice, exposure, and we are explicitly making clear what our different graph types are and when we use them. Which brings up the great question of, well, but how do we decide? How do we decide which graph type to use? And I just want to share like a quick shout out. We talked about this last week, and just want to kind of share again for those of you that haven't had a chance to jump in, this graph type matrix, free resources that we've put together about common graph types that show up in our K-12 classroom. So yes, the bar chart is there. Absolutely, but so are scatter plots and good old box plots, yay, pie charts, line plots, all of these different things. There are in fact more than you can see on this page. And we have it identified by grade bands as to like, well, what are the graph types that our students are working on? And I will put this in the link for today's live session again, because I just want to share it out of a like, we don't need to teach them everything at every moment, but we need to think about what have they seen multiple times? How are we building upon that? Therefore, what should they know and where can we push them a little bit further? But then also, when we're making our scatter plots in 8th grade, they haven't actually really had much exposure or experience with those. So they're still more at like an elementary or a novice level of their understanding of that scatter plot. So when they get to 9th and 10th grade, they are still at early stages of working with the scatter plot. And so these are sort of the many layers, as opposed to By the time they're in 9th and 10th grade, oh my goodness, they think they have bar charts down. Now, you and I might disagree on how they put them together, but they feel like they've seen them a lot of times and they're like, check, done, I got that. So just thinking about kind of why those bar charts are so sticky, why they might be going to them, why you might be seeing so many of them in your classroom, I think can be helpful to sort of unpack. And then thinking about kind of, okay, so what are the different grade types what are the different graph types, visualization types by grade level, and how can we use that to our advantage? I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I would love to hear your thoughts on this bar charts and why they're so sticky for our students and what's working with your students. Please feel free to reach out at any time, support@dataspire.org. Check out the graph type matrix activity, free, happy for you to use it, and would love to hear how it's going with your students. Until next week.